Hey, everybody. I'm glad you're with us. We are trying a new format today. So we're going to see how this goes. I'm hoping you can all hear me and that we're doing fine. Um, we are, because of security concerns with Zoom, not big ones, but small ones. We're not, we don't have all the resources in the world to make sure everything's secure. And we're trying a new format. So the best way to watch us right now is on Facebook Live. And you can watch us on Facebook Live at C3 Leaders. It'll be the same content. It'll provide better interaction. And we're also streaming on YouTube. And the YouTube channel we are streaming on is going to be at Mason Rutledge. So thank you for being with us. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're a part of the time. And Greg Jantz is going to be with us shortly. A couple expectations for our time is, well, first of all, you can shift over, remember, over to Facebook Live. That's going to be the best way to interact with us, or on YouTube at Mason Rutledge. So we will get back to you. Send me a text if you can't hear me. That would be key to know, but I think everybody can. Okay. Well, expectations for the time. There's a small window in our world for you to build into yourself and those around you. And so in that, I'm going to ask you to silence your devices. I know that's difficult, to close other windows. We believe that God has you here for this time and for this screen at this time. So don't miss this opportunity. We will want your engagement. You'll want to use the chat box that's available to you. And research proves that if you use the chat box, now what I'm hearing from folks is that you can't hear me right now. So that's good. That's perfect, isn't it? You should be able to hear me okay. I'm going to try something else here just to see if we can fix that. I apologize about this. I'll see why you can't hear me right now. So the best thing for you to do is, if you can't hear me, to jump over to Zoom Live. But I am checking my connections here to see what might be going on with why you can't hear me, because that shouldn't be happening. Let me see. Can you hear me now, everybody? Give me a little thumbs up if you can, somebody. There we go. Can you hear me now? Everybody, can you hear me now? I'm seeing some head nods. That's good news. Thanks for that head nod, Ed. Always get a good head nod from Ed.
Yes.
Yes. So thank you. Hey, the best way for you guys to watch this is going to be on Facebook Live. You're happy to stay here on the Zoom as well. But just to let you know, Facebook Live at C3 Leaders or at or other places. So okay. All right. We're going to give it a go. Everybody good? I hope so. They can hear us. That's good. Mark Wagner even said he can hear me. So I love that. So we're going to get, so just remember, this is being streamed live on Facebook Live. You can check it there. And it's also on YouTube if you want to check it there. You're going to have better interaction with us on Facebook and on YouTube. The Facebook is at C3 Leaders, and the YouTube is at Mesa Rutledge. So, all right. I think Greg's ready to go. Let me see if I can get him in here, and we'll get started. Greg, thanks for being with us. I really appreciate it. And we're trying all kinds of new stuff. So this is fun. Can we hear?
It's fun.
We can hear you too.
Hey, look at here. And I got my new microphone out. I'm ready for you guys.
I love it. Well, I want to tell you a little bit about Greg Jantz. He has been a friend for a long time. And it was a few years ago that I ran into a challenge in my own life in thinking through what am I going to be about? What am I going to do? How am I going to manage my life? And Greg said, hey, you need to get in here and get some help. And he brought me in, helped me out. And it was awesome.
I can hear you, Lisa. Hi, Ann.
Whoops, sorry. I got to mute some people. I'm muting you guys just so you know, so we can't hear you.
See Ellen and Ed.
Oh boy, I got a talker on here. Who's talking? I got to find him, Greg, before we let you go.
Well, who's talking?
Yeah.
Hi guys.
Hey, if you guys could all
mute myself, so make things easy.
That would be great. Thank you. Yeah, if you guys could all mute, that'd be great. So Greg, I jumped into his office. I said I need help, and he jumped in to help me, and it was a real godsend for me. And I'm thankful for him in my life. And it was beautiful because he said, you know what you got to do, Mason, is you got to go run. You got to run. And I took up exercising. And that was one of the pieces of information he gave us, if not so much others he's invested in my life. And it's interesting because if you're in my position right now, you're filling out government forms, you're trying to figure out where to get wipes. How do I get how do I get masks? I canceled plane tickets. I've canceled, conferences, and I need a haircut like crazy. And my barber is nowhere to be in sight. So there's a lot to be anxious about in this time, and not only for us, but also for our employees. Yeah. And so that's why Greg's going to help us out today. So Greg, thanks for being with us. And I'm going to give it to you, and you're going to lead us on, and I'll watch you along the way.
You got it. So this new little thing we're wearing here. So this is what it looks like to be here at the Center, a place of hope. And we've been open. We're essential services, which is an interesting place to be because mental health issues, as we know, are increasing, and anxiety. Who hasn't felt some anxiety? We have to take extraordinary means. We've had to put in a whole new medical air ventilation system. And this place has got, we're like an operating room in here. And we've got, these are everywhere.
Hey, Greg, let me interrupt you for 1 second, if that's okay.
Of course.
Hey, the best thing for folks to do now, I'm hearing we've got video problems and seeing that in the chat, is leave Zoom and join us on Facebook or on YouTube. Facebook at C3 Leaders, or at on YouTube at Mason Rutledge if you don't do Facebook.
Head over to Facebook. I believe they're streaming on the Facebook Live, and it's coming up perfectly over there if you guys have a Facebook account.
And I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll send you the link right now so that you guys have it on YouTube or on Facebook or on YouTube, just as somebody shared. Facebook, jump over on Facebook, and it's working great there at C3 Leaders, or on YouTube. Those are the two places where it seems to be streaming better. And I'm going to put those in the chat here so you have them. Or Facebook at C3 Leaders. Don't you love this technology stuff, Greg? I mean, this is so much fun. Thanks for being patient with us.
I'm flexible. We can do anything we need.
I know. Yeah, that's why we love you, Greg. How's your family? Is everybody doing okay?
Everybody's healthy? Everybody's well.
Good. I'm going to try to put the direct Facebook link right in here so that works well. So everybody that's on here, Gary, Lori, Bob, Facebook or is where you're going to get the best video. That's what I'll say, the best production. And then we'll go from there. All right, Greg, do you think I can give it back over?
Oh, no, just interrupt anytime. I just want to my microphone has been, I'm ready to go. I'm disinfected. Hey, right now, the American Psychiatric Association, which is an interesting group, but they're saying right now, nearly half of us Americans, we are anxious about just getting coronavirus. And here, we're going to work every day, including our patients. So we're a partial hospital program. So our patients live here in our housing, and everybody's wearing these with special filters. We're all on the edge of anxiety. But here's what's interesting. Most of us, about 70% of us, we're worried about a family member or a loved one getting coronavirus. And it's so interesting how fear has taken on, and fear runs in herds, which we'll talk about. I want to have we have short time together. I want it to be helpful, I want it to be valuable. And I also want to just acknowledge just the incredible job that Mason is doing with us here at C3 Leaders. So what a privilege to partner with all of you together. And we need each other more than ever before. My verse, and each day I'm kind of doing the old-fashioned way of doing this on 3x5 cards, and I carry it in my pocket. And my verse today is, the name of the Lord is a strong tower, and the righteous run to it and are safe. Proverbs 18:10. And I was thinking about that strong tower. Right now, irregardless what we think of the World Health Organization, they're saying that depression is the #1 disability in the world, depression. But here's the thing, that anxiety is coming alongside, is the new depression. So now anxiety is pushing depression off the top of the list as the #1 mental health issue. I thought it might be helpful for us just to look at, how do you know if you've got anxiety, or how do you know what's the difference between anxiety and worry? And I want to acknowledge as well, these are exceedingly stressful times, over the top right now, and people are overwhelmed. But here's a few of this. And by the way, anytime we're under that intense chronic stress, and particularly I want to say you've got financial on top of that as business leaders, and people's lives and people who've been laid off, and how are we managing that? That's intense chronic stress. And I'm concerned about what we're going to see here in the near future if this anxiety continues. But here's how to know if you've got it. Let's just do a quick checklist. You may have woke up this morning feeling extremely fatigued. I mean, over the top fatigued, low energy. It's like, well, I think I slept last night, but what's going on? And there's that heaviness of that fatigue that you can't seem to shake off. Certainly there's oftentimes shallow breathing. It's like my breathing is way off. And people don't realize it, but when they get anxiety, they get physical symptoms. And so my breathing is shallow, which creates other problems. If I have anxiety, my heart rate is up. I can't seem to concentrate. I'm seeing people with a lot of just unexplained body aches and tenseness. And I've had two people last week who told me that they woke up in the middle of the night drenched in sweat. And they were worried that they had the coronavirus, and they didn't. They just had enormous amounts of stress. We know too that sleep issues usually go along hand in hand, or lack of sleep. But people waking up in the middle of the night, maybe in that sweat, but the heart seems to be racing, and there's just a disturbance there in the sleep cycles. I used to work in sleep research, and I know that the importance of sleep cycles and our emotional well-being, what could happen there. We may see, I put down digestive issues. You may see a lot of just unusual digestive issues. Oftentimes we'll have people say, I just can't seem to slow my thinking down. It won't stop. For people that are already on the edge, I mean, this is just enough. And I mentioned that fear and panic runs in herds. Somebody a number of weeks ago in Seattle decided it was going to be toilet paper. And we created a toilet paper pandemic, really. And then fear, because fear runs in herds. And I remember going to Costco, it's been about 2 weeks ago, and I didn't go inside. I just stood outside and I observed. And then as part of a personal experiment, we drove about a mile over in Edmonds, and I went into a grocery store, and besides wiping my cart handle, everything seemed normal. I even went over to where there was toilet paper, and there was toilet paper. It's like everything was normal. And I thought about, this is really something. I can go here, but 1 mile away, there's fear and there's panic and how people are behaving. And so that's what I mean, that fear and panic runs in herds. And we have our staff, we have our clients, or we have our family members, and we're seeing this chronic stage of fear which is creating all this physical anxiety. Seeing right now, these are just some observations I wanted to share, but we're seeing more people with obsessive compulsive tendencies. It's like, I can't get, that's why this is in every room here. Can't get it clean enough. I can't wipe it enough. Oh, did I wipe that handle on the way out? I mean, if you don't have OCD, now by the time this is over, we're all on the edge of OCD. And I'm seeing it with moms and parents is like, are things clean enough? Am I taking good care enough of my kids? Here's something I want you to look for. And it's something that's rampant right now. I'm going to call it acute anticipatory anxiety. Acute anxiety. What's that? That's that pending doom that something bad's going to happen. And when we feel like something bad's always around the corner, we probably have noticed here as human beings, we feel like we have to do something. We have to stock up on something, but we have to do some behavior in order to get a sense of control. And I think still, even though here in Washington State, our numbers are improving, there are some things that certainly are promising. We don't know. We need to go a little farther here probably before we're going to hear too much unravel as far as lessening up on some restraints. But we know we're headed in a good direction, but we still have people that are they're worried about the future. They're still anticipating something bad's going to happen. And the financial stress is getting greater. And anytime we have that, people begin to do desperate things. And this is one of the checkpoints we need to do with ourselves. Desperate people do desperate things. What are we trying to do to gain just a sense of control? And I know we have a high need, all of us do. There's a need for some emotional comfort. There's a need to know that this is going to be okay. And I'm out there and I'm walking around Edmonds and I'm carrying my verses next to in my chest pocket, and I'm reminding myself, what's my strong tower, and how can I create that even for others, and for many of us, it's creating a sense of comfort and peace for our family. Fear is, as we know, contagious. Anxiety, you probably have also observed that you can walk into a room and a person that's anxious, you feel it. It radiates from them. Panic is that way. You can walk into that Costco like I did when all this started, and it was a herd of panic. You felt it. Right now, particularly I feel for, we got school at home, online, and we've got another layer of stress for our parents and families. And there's this sense that I feel anxious, and our kids are sponges, and they're going to absorb that anxiety. And then we've got an anxious and afraid home. And I think that's something for us to be aware of. The high need for emotional comfort. And this is something we need to all look for. We're tending to do some self-destructive behaviors. And I just wanted to share some of my observations. Maybe you've heard that the whole area of alcohol consumption or alcohol sales are up. I just heard this morning again, it was up again. The last one we heard is, hey, alcohol sales are up 55%. Well, what are people doing? Interesting, here in the state of Washington, alcohol is essential, cannabis is essential. What are we creating? What we're creating is a lot greater problem. And I think we're going to need to look at what's going to be happening in the area of addiction recovery. In our state, we've had 5 treatment centers actually close up. 5 treatment centers that have closed up. And yet the need is greater than ever before. And so the self-destructive behaviors, is there alcohol consumption going on? Is there, we know that there's a lot of just food consumption. There are people that food is their drug of choice. And so we're all looking for a way to feel a sense of comfort. We also have heard that relational conflict is up. People are cooped up, and the relationship tension is greater than ever before, probably. And if you mix a little alcohol, cannabis, you're eating a lot, there probably is going to be some conflict. But what we know is we're hoping it's going to be normal, but life is not normal. And we're seeing, and I believe that one of the things we're going to see is things hopefully in the near future begin to open up. We have folks that really have developed a sense of agoraphobia. It's the fear of open places. It's like I feel trapped inside, but I also feel trapped when I go outside emotionally. I don't know who or what is safe. Can you imagine when our churches open back up and we're able to actually go to church again in person? Can you imagine? It's going to be awkward. It's like, do I shake a hand? Do I hug? And some people are going to take offense. Some people are going to wear masks. There's a general social awkwardness that is going to be there for folks, because we know that one of the big issues right now is can I trust? Who can I trust? And I think as business leaders and owners, we want to project and be a place of trustworthiness for our customers if we're able to serve them right now. But for our family, we want to be a voice of trust, but understanding that there's a lot of mistrust. Talk about viral misinformation out there that, if you're working from home and you're on screens all day and we're going from cable channel to cable channel and we're getting all the notifications over and over and over throughout the day, by the end of the day, we're going to have a lot of anxiety, and we're going to feel that. There's going to be a digital overload. And people are feeling that. I saw that. I have one son, he's 17 and he's still at home and he's doing online school, restarted today. And I noticed something that was happening. They were doing about, probably 7 hours at times, then 2 hours on top of that of online screen activity. And there they were, just all day long on the screens and this doing school. And I noticed there's a digital irritability that comes up, and our kids, as we're not wired, our brains aren't. We can create an anxious brain by being too deep into the digital world too long. So, just an observation. One of the things that we've done, and we'll continue to probably work on, is I called it a one-day tech delay, and we're working on having a day where technology is kind of a mini detox, where we're working on just taking a break from the social media, from being engaged and overstimulated. So we're seeing, and I believe it's true, there is a lot of digital addiction. And we know the upswing in the use of pornography. And what are the accurate numbers? I don't know, but we're seeing a lot of increase. Obviously, anything that helps us mood modulate, change how we feel, is going to be something that people are going to be prone towards. Self-destructive behaviors. One in my field, a lot of folks, now we're a partial hospital setting, so this doesn't work for us, but we're doing virtual sessions, and it's a nice and medically to have. We have a medical team here, and it's nice to have some virtual options. But we know that our virtual relationships, I'm glad we can do this today, and I'm thankful for the noontime lunch and learns. But we know that we've got to get back, and there's going to be a time where the face-to-face is going to be so important for us. I mean, this is at best just an emergency provision. We know that there's going to be more psychological fallout. And I'd like to share, first of all, we need to gauge ourselves. Are we doing any of those self-destructive behaviors? Are we excessive in any area? And excessiveness can look like overspending even now, even when there's financial stress. When we get an overload of anxiety, what we may tend to do is lose our impulse control. People become more impulsive. And as our need for comfort increases, we become even more and more compulsive. So I'm looking at what are my own personal self-management strategies, and what are the things that I'm, and as our family, that we're working on, because we've got to move from being self-absorbed and paralyzed by fear and paralyzed by anxiety. And if we have anxiety, that means we've already got the physical symptoms. That's already present. But as we are moving and making a decision, I've got to renew my mind. I've got to do things that are not self-absorbed with fear and anxiety, but I've got to move over to being more self-directed and what I'll just call self-management strategies. So number one, I wrote down for me, I'm going to avoid the subtle and sneaky slide of any self-destructive behavior. And I wrote down, I'm not going to act impulsively. Now there's days, we've had things, we still have patients who come to see us and they're coming from different states, and we're dealing with complexities of taking people's temperatures multiple times, people wearing masks, and just that environment can create an environment of just intenseness. And people want to cope with intenseness when it gets to be too much by just being impulsive. The person who pops the extra pill, the prescription, even if it's a prescription. And so one of the things that we're working on, even as a family, is being quicker with our pause button. That means in the words we say, because there's such hypersensitivity, people are really sensitive right now. They're irritable. The IQs have gone up. Irritability quotient. They're just irritable. And so putting a pause and just going, you know what? I'm not going to act impulsively. And we're working on just practicing grace. And I'm talking about just in our family, but to be more practitioners of grace and lowering our hypersensitivity. Chronic stress creates this hypersensitivity. And you'll probably notice right now, stressful times, it's easy just to take offense. And it's easy to fall into that blame game. It's easy to fall into that I'm so irritable. So too much stress. Here's what I'm doing. Besides hitting my pause button, I'm working on simple things. Right here in my office, I've grabbed my water. People, when they're anxious, tend not to drink water. They tend to overdrink other things, whether it be coffee, but they don't tend to drink water. And so here's the goal. Get the majority of your water intake by about early afternoon, 1 or 2 o'clock. Water improves mood. I know it sounds so simple, but water improves mood, improves concentration, improves blood pressure. People under anxiety and chronic stress drink a lot of other things, and maybe too much caffeine, even though my wife and I own the little coffee shop, the Red Twig in Edmonds. And, it's pretty nice to have some good coffee, but when do I switch? So the water. And one of the other things that's so important, I know that we're probably all working on, is the whole area of movement, just moving, keeping movement. We're doing this. We're 3 times a day. We're asking our staff to go out, and I'm doing it too, and walk intensively for at least 20 minutes, carrying that promise, that verse, and verbalizing God's word out loud. So simple, but boy, just to go outside, we were doing it when it was raining as well. And so for us, that represents, I'm going to do these self-management strategies in order to build a sense of self-management. All right. We doing okay there, Mason? Did you want
I'm wondering, Greg, if this would be a good point for us. If this would take a good point for us to just take a minute, and because we want your engagement in this. What Greg will tell you and what research shows is that if you are able to write down what you are thinking,
yep,
it will lead to greater actual happening. So Greg's given us a great first 20 minutes here. Write down an action step that you're going to do. And then on your screen, you'll see a chat box as well. We will have questions and answers at the end. And this is where the questions and answers will come from, is from that chat box. So if you have questions like I do, like, Greg, if I drink that much water, I'm going to be going to the bathroom a lot.
That's right. That's
just one of the questions I have. Probably not for this kind of doctor. The good news is that now that I'm at my home office, it's a lot closer, it's private, etc. Anyway, let's just take a second and think about what are you going to be processing in this time? Like, what will that be? What is an action step that you'll want to take in this moment? And then also type in any questions you may have. I put the questions up there on the screen. What is something you have just learned in this last little segment? Could be the water, could be exercising. I wrote down taking a pause button, the 1-day tech delay, fear runs in herds, the fear of open places. I hadn't heard that before, Greg.
Yeah.
You touched on something there. So what is it for you? What is something you just learned? Write that down. And then in the chat box, write down any questions you may have. Greg, are you ready to get back after it? We got about another 15
Absolutely.
minutes here, and then we'll have questions and answers at the end. And those questions will come from the comment box. So make sure to write that down.
Okay.
Thanks to those of you that have jumped over to Facebook and YouTube. All right, Greg. We are back to you.
All righty. You know, one of the other areas.
You're on.
Hey, I'm on. Okay. One of the things that we're seeing is people are not getting protein in the morning. See, everything is off. What was normal before, when we get under chronic stress, we stop doing. And one of the things that we're doing is, okay, within an hour of waking up, have you had some protein? People's blood sugar levels are dropping. They're not able to concentrate. They're more irritable, and they go right into that news consumption. So they're eating a lot of news and not nourishing their body. One of the things that I have worked on is, for part of my strong tower and finding that strong tower, is I have a certain place in my home that I go and I'll spend 10 minutes where I'm refocusing. It may be kind of just prayer time, but I'm same spot, and it represents a safe place, and it represents a place for me to reset and to re-anchor. And one of the things that we tend to do is we're not re-anchoring. And re-anchoring means I'm running on empty. It also means that I'm probably full of anxiety. Anxiety will lead us ultimately to depression. And depression is something that is probably pretty significant right now for many, and you can't seem to shake it off. There's a situational depression, and that's a depression because we're going through a tough situation. But there's other depression that just doesn't go away. I'm concerned about the amount of physical chronic stress that are on our bodies and what that's going to do, because there's going to be a physiological depression. The body's going to become depressed. And if we've used alcohol as a way to mood modulate, we're going to have, that's a central nervous system depressant, and we're going to move ourselves in a place of a physical depression. So that those simple things like movement and water and protein, and having, I would say, 3 to 5 people who are my trustworthy people. Could be in my C3 group, could be somebody that I can connect with that will tell me the truth and also speak words of hope, but truthfully. We get so easily overwhelmed at times by the pressure right now that we forget to ask for help and to allow outside opinions. I've had a couple folks say, no, I don't have time for that. I'm in crisis. And yet to pause when we're in a crisis moment, hitting the pause button and having those 3 to 5 trusted resources that we're going to use. I have one, and he's actually a hospital administrator, and he's going through significant crisis. But just the other day, last week, he sent me a text, and he says, I'm praying Psalms 91 over you and the center today. And I'm thinking, this guy has got a whole hospital to take care of, and he's in charge of the control center, and that's got to be a pretty tough and place to be. And he took time to tell me that he was praying Psalms 91 over me and the center. Okay, that's a friend, and we need those kind of friends, and that's the beauty of what we're doing with C3 is we can develop that and trustworthy resources. All right, was there a question or anything for me to give a comment on here, Mason? Hopefully I'm looking in the right area. Okay. One of the things that I'm also looking at is, what am I saying out loud? One of the things that I'm noticing is there's a lot of criticism, there's a lot of judgment, and there's a lot of anger out there. And we've got folks who are filled with anger, and there's almost a barometer of anger that people are being destructive in their relationships. And as a business influencer, a business leader, I think it's extremely easy to fall over to that side of the anger. But I also know that we've got to be initiating forgiveness. Let's move from being filled with frustration and anger, which is very real, but let's move it over to making a decision as a leader. I'm going to be an initiator of forgiveness. And just a checkpoint, when I'm out for that 20-minute walk, how am I doing with my forgiveness today? Who do I need to forgive? What do I need to do to lower this level of anger, this level of anxiety?
Greg, we do have a couple questions.
Let's do it.
I'll pop them up here. We'll see if it looks okay, and you'll see them here in a second, I believe.
Yes. Here's a good one from Ron.
From our good friend Ron.
Yeah.
How can we help our friends and family and customers begin to recognize the new normal after the pandemic? For example, is it okay to wear a mask and not hug? Greg, I'm not a hugger. I've had to grow into my hugging. It's my Norwegian roots.
Yep.
So in this new world, when I do start hugging again, what will it be like for folks?
I think though what we're doing on the outside, if you're wearing a mask, it's communicating probably I'm not ready yet to have you get too close to me. And there's going to be an awkward social transition. I think, even some of the screens that we may see, the plexiglass screens, I think they're going to stay for a while. There's going to be a gradual loosening up and a gradual trusting of other people. And I think you do. I think when this is over, there's going to be people that, because it's going to be rolled out probably a little bit slow, but there's going to be people that are going to be wearing masks. And one of the things that Monday mornings is when we welcome our new clients or patients here. And I was talking with them this morning as I was wearing this. And I told them I would have far preferred to come up, shake your hand, and get a little closer to you. But I can't do that right now. But I want you to know my heart is I would really love to just acknowledge you and shake your hand. And I think we're going to see a lot of folks that are going to move into this slowly. And with customers, we need to be aware. We're going to be keeping some screens up. We've got some plexiglass screens at our front desk, and it's going to probably go away slowly. But I think some of the new habits and new sanitation, I think we're going to probably see this for a while, and it's probably a good thing. We're resetting, and what I told our staff is, let's use this time. Let's use this time to see what all we need to improve and reset. And we're areas of our organization that we can even think about now to improve while this is going on. And how can we keep it going on and keep the improvement going? Because sometimes we're so busy, we forget. And you know what? Everybody would kind of have voted, keep up the sanitation. We've got folks that come in and, spray and disinfect at night. Everybody wants it clean. So, all right. Hey, here's from Ann.
You'll see that our friend Ann, I'm
Hey,
going to
Ann.
start using my note cards again for my daily word of encouragement. If you guys know Ann, she is already an encourager. So imagine Ann with note cards encouraging. It's going to be a blessing upon blessing. And then we got one other question here from Ed McCahill. They'll show here in a second. What are the foods we should avoid throughout the duration of the lockdown? And please don't say Oreos, because they have been a great coping mechanism.
I love it. By the way, the old-fashioned 3x5 cards, I'm using these, and as I use them, then I'm putting them back in my Bible, because I think I'm going to still need these. Oh, and but being careful what we say out loud. This is why it sounds a little silly, but when I go out for my 20 minutes, I'm carrying one of those cards and I am repeating God's word out loud. And I'm not shouting it from the corner, but what we're verbalizing out loud does matter. Okay, how about foods? One of the things that this is what happened to us yesterday at our home. I have two sons. And we had I don't know, it was a fruit dish of some sort that we had for dessert for Easter. And we all kind of did that. About 15 minutes later, my son asked for some money. And they took off and they went to the grocery store and they came back with, the nice little fancy ice cream. It came back because we didn't have any ice cream, which was kind of funny. And they made themselves their own dessert. And I thought, okay, this was funny and hilarious. And one of the things that I think we make allowances for, celebration. But one of the things that we want to be careful about doing is sugar overstresses when we're already stressed out, and chronic stress creates inflammation in the body, and that inflammation sets us up for other potential problems. And so we're very aware of sugar consumption, and so that's just our big thing. We're avoiding too much sugar because it's so easy to do. But we want to also acknowledge when there's something special. Yeah, if we have a birthday, we're gonna enjoy that birthday cake. So it's not creating an obsessive compulsive disorder around sugar. But for us, that was just the one single thing, because we tend to do a lot better without it. Okay, but we also allowed it yesterday at Easter. Oh,
Yeah. So Greg, here's a question about elderberry and Advil. I don't know about the Advil. I have heard about elderberry.
yeah.
What can we know about those two things? Or what do
Well,
you, any
elderberry-
opinion?
Yes. So we have a team of medical providers here, and elderberry is actually something that we use as a general immune system. We use elderberry, zinc, some of these things you've already heard about that have good sound, what we call evidence-based. And elderberry, you can hardly get it now. And so we're not avoiding it. We're the manufacturers and the various firms that are, it's hard to come by, but it is something we use. We typically here, because we need to know what is a person's true temperature. So we're not allowing things like Advil or Tylenol. If a person has a headache, it could mean something else. And we're doing temperatures right now twice, well, in the morning and later on, so twice a day. So we're not allowing anything like that, because that headache may mean something else.
Here's one from Karen Johnson. First of all, thanks. Difference in how teenagers are reacting to this, more or less anxiety. I do see the teenagers running around the neighborhood now and then. How are they doing? How are the kids?
Yeah.
What do you find?
Teenagers. Well, remember, developmentally, they may be dealing with things differently. The younger kids have been inside, and they're feeling like, I'm tired of inside. I have environmental boredom. But then they're kind of concerned, is it safe to go outside? And so developmentally, the younger ones are going to deal with this differently. The teenagers, there's probably a lot that are going to be, because a teenager believes they're invincible. And so they're not the ones necessarily following the rules. And because, a teenager, things don't really apply to me. And so they're the ones that are seeing what they can get away with, and oftentimes are, if you will, placating. But I think that we're going to see with our teenagers probably an increased use, unfortunately. Cannabis seems to be a big deal right now. We're seeing a lot of stuff going through social media in teenagers right now. That is, I'm particularly concerned about the ages 12 to 17. 12 to 17, because depending on what month you're watching, suicide rotates between the number 1 and number 2 cause of death in that age group. It's also the age group because the average age to exposure to pornography on the internet is about age 9. And so we're seeing the 12 to 17-year-olds oftentimes heavily engaged in pornography. We know that the gaming and the overstimulation of the brain early on. So our brains that are overstimulated, too much technology, creates what we call a craving brain. And our young folks, that's why, again, by age 12-ish through 17, overstimulated the brain with too much technology. They have a craving brain, which leads them to want to have more and more stimulation. So, all right.
Yeah, that's good. This is all the way from Minnesota, which is great to have Daniel with us from Minneapolis. And this is our last question, and then we'll wrap up with a few final announcements. But how can we utilize digital meetings and conversations in a healthy way without causing more digital anxiety for ourselves or those we reach out to? Do's and don'ts, any recommendations?
Yes, I have a couple recommendations. Great question, Daniel. Thank you. One of the recommendations is we need to always acknowledge to a person that our digital connection, the relationship still means a great deal. The relationship has value. And I'm going to begin by praying if it's appropriate or not. But I'm going to acknowledge the value of that relationship. What that looks like is, is simply say, it's so good to see you. I wish we could be doing this differently. And your time is valuable. I'm going to probably, after I acknowledge the relationship, I'm going to get down to doing what we need to do. And I'm also going to just be aware, and I'm going to probably ask a question or two sincerely about how are you managing with this? How is it for you? Showing sincere interest in that other person and what they may be faced. And then there may be an opportunity. How can I help in some way? I've started something, and my wife helped me with this, and it directly is connected to your question. On all of our devices, she has actually put up a notification every day that says 1 person a day. Here it is right here. 1 person a day. It's on my screen up here as well. And my wife, LaFawn, set this up for our whole family because she says there's going to be 1 person a day that God's going to bring to you for you to be aware of, whether it's extending grace, saying some words they need, or in some way asking how you can help them. And so I've tried to focus on, I don't know, who's my 1 person today, Lord? Give me the wisdom to see who's that 1 person. Is it somebody in my neighborhood? Is it somebody I'm going to come in contact with in a business way? But who's my 1 person a day? And I just keeping that. It's right here on my screen. See, it's 1 person a day. God's going to give that. So thank you, LaFawn. That's my wife.
That's great. Thank you very much, Greg. And thank you for the time as well. We really appreciate it. I know that I had one person text me, a friend of mine, and he said, does Greg know that I'm on the call? Because he's kind of reading my mail right now. So that's good. You spoke to somebody specifically.
We're in this
I'm
together.
sure you spoke to many folks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Greg. We got a few announcements to end with, but thank you very much, Greg. Glad you were with us. Yeah. Really appreciate it. And by the way, you've been very gracious. You are offering the book to everybody. So if you registered we will be sending you a link to a digital book. And Greg has written 39 books. Is that right? Or have you passed the 40 mark?
No, 30 it is. 39.
Well, Greg, thanks for being with us. We'll send the digital link out to everybody. We have a few announcements to end with, but I'll let you go, Greg. Thank you very much again. Hey, just a few announcements for you, and we do have one person that's going to give a testimony as well, briefly about C3 program is impacted. I want to give you a few announcements. First of all, if you need prayer, and Greg spoke to much of this right now. If you need prayer, prayer is available right now at c3leaders.com/prayer. It's a prayer wall. You can post your prayers there. We will pray for you. And then every weekday at 4 o'clock, because we work with business leaders, we know that life's hard right now. We have prayer time available, a Zoom call at 4 o'clock every day for you. And we'd love to help you out with prayer every day at 4 o'clock. Feel free. If you need information on that, just email me at c3leaders@c3leaders.com or mrutledge@c3leaders.com, and we'll get that to you. The other thing I'd say is that there is more events coming up. We are obviously going to evaluate the technology here and see if we can actually do this, but we do have events coming up. And so you can find those at c3leaders.com/events or on the C3 mobile app. Both of those are available. I will say that for our next event, we are going to do a lunch and learn next Monday with Daniel Halleck and Rob McKenna. Rob used to be at SPU. He now runs an organization called Wild Leaders, and that is available next Monday, April 20th. We'll have that event. And then in 2 weeks, we will have Dr. Don and Renee Wooster being with us. So what we've aligned here with is, if you remember last week, we had business leaders. This week was a little bit more personal. How do you apply this to my own life? Next week will be business leaders again, where we'll be talking about innovation in uncertain times. And then 2 weeks from today, it'll be a little bit more personal with Donna Renee Wooster talking about the home and how you manage effective home as you're running your business. Okay, I'm going to give it over to Alan Pratt now, and Alan is going to share a little bit about C3 Leaders and the impact that it's had on him. And Alan, hopefully everything will work, and then we'll have one more announcement at the end. So we'll see how it goes. Alan, thanks for being with us. Give us 60 seconds on C3 and what it's meant for you. I know you're in a great forum in Issaquah. We're ready for you, Alan. If you can hear us, go for it. Well, look at that. At least we're consistent, huh? It didn't work, it looks like. All right. Well, we tried, Alan. We'll get you next time. You guys, thanks for being patient as we tried new technology and tried to